The RBA dismisses our concerns about the cash ban. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Lauren Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my morning stein of coffee here, and I thought we would have a look at this article written by Nassim Kadem on the ABC about the cash ban, and that we can all be thankful, guys. We're all just crazy conspiracy theorists. You know, this cash ban, it's not about the government controlling our money. Now, before we get into the article, here's the thing. I could honestly accept what they're saying here, that the cash ban is systematically designed to control us or to control our money. That's the unintended consequences. Government isn't very good at realizing the unintended consequences, or at least it feels that way with all these stupid policies that our bureaucrats seem to force onto our political leaders. I'm not concerned about the next election or the election after that. I'm concerned about 15 years' time, when they reduce the cash ban even more, when they use this legislation, this mechanism they are creating to punish people, or those perhaps who are political dissents, or who don't agree with the established opinion. This is the danger. The more rules we create, the more opportunity we allow authoritarianism to creep in and control us bit by bit. It starts in small steps, everyone. And I think most people understand that. And I think there's another group of people who just are a little bit maybe naive in world history and don't see baby steps as they are. Anyway, so the proposed cash ban is not about controlling your money, says the Reserve Bank. It's about criminalizing everyone just for spending their money, of course. The theory that the real motive behind the federal government's proposed cash ban is to create an Orwellian state that gives banks greater control over people's money and authorities greater control over people's behavior during recession is far-fetched, according to the Reserve Bank. Okay, but it can allow that to happen. That may not be the reason why it was created or why it was put forward, but it can lead to this. This is the problem. This is simply why we don't need it. There's ample evidence presented to the Senate that this ban is going to be pointless, it isn't going to be necessary, and Australians are just going to be compliant little sheep. That's how they will enforce it. A controversial bill to ban cash payments of $10,000 and imposing 2 years jail sentences for people using cash for purchases above that limit has enraged many members of the public who say the government should not interfere with their legal right to spend cash how they wish. Yes, Nassim's got a good point there. It's that simple. It is that simple. It is a question of your personal liberty. I don't think that's a big thing here in Australia, is it? Not like in the States. The proposed cash ban bill passed the lower house late last year and was due to start on January 1, but will not become law until after a Senate inquiry looks into it, which I think is good. I think it's good that the inquiry is going into it. What's depressing is, and I did a video looking at the speeches that were given during its passing of the lower house, and it was depressing. They gave good speeches, but there was no one there. And then everyone just piled in and just voted. So how many people are blindly just voting along party lines? Is politician that hard a job? You just get told how to vote, go and tick it if you're for one of the majors. I mean, get a good pension, get good perks. It sounded good. But then again, you got a whole lot of trouble, and the hours wouldn't be that good. And you got to kiss everyone's ass. Yeah, I'd probably be bad. I'd say the truth too many times. The federal government has said the measure is intended to fight the black economy by stamping out tax evasion, money laundering, and other crimes. Oh, because making it illegal is going to stop criminals. I mean, come on. Thousands of stakeholders have made submissions to the inquiry. Among many other objections raised, some expressed a concern that the law may leave people's bank deposits vulnerable to negative interest rates. Well, yes. This is a situation whereby instead of receiving money on deposits, depositors must regularly keep their money with the bank. Sorry. Several MPs, including independent MP Andrew Wilkie, have previously said they would not be supporting the bill as it stands, with Mr. Wilkie relaying people's concerns that it was designed to push people into the clutches of the banks. Well, see, this is the thing. I don't know what the unbanked population is here in Australia, but I would hazard it can't be that high compared to other parts of the world. And a lot of what this legislation is proposing to do is, moving us to a cashless society and taking advantage of interest rates or negative interest rates. It kind of doesn't matter because naturally people are already progressing to it because it's more convenient. It's that simple. I do too. I rarely spend cash, guys. It's a pain, But then again, when you hold a piece of silver in your hand and when you hold a plastic cash of the same value, the silver feels more solid. Now, if you're interested in the theory of negative interest rates, there's a paper written on the IMF, and I will link to it. I'm just going to write down the time here. I did a video on this. I'll link to it above. Went through the paper up here. And in this paper, they looked at creating, it's an IMF research paper, they looked at creating two currencies. You've got your paper currency and you've got your digital currency. And when you have negative interest rates, you can create an exchange rate between the two. So if you have negative interest rates of 5, what you do is you create the exchange rate between the digital currency and the paper currency of 0.95. So you can't get around the negative interest rates by holding onto cash because it loses money over time. The exchange rate between those two currencies are pegged and automatically adjusted to reflect changes to negative interest rates. So even having this mechanism in place where you can take out as much money as you want, they can create ways around it. Which is quite interesting when you think about it. You reckon that would get through? Wow. I mean, damn. You see that happening, and it's not about happening next year. It's not about happening the year after. It's happening in 10 years' time. The reason I've got issue with this is what it will potentially cause issues for my children. So the RBA says Australia is unlikely to see negative interest rates. But the Reserve Bank head of payment policy, Tony Richards, rejected the view that the proposed law was a precursor to the imposition of negative interest rates and the government deciding to withdraw cash from circulation. With respect, I think some of those concerns that you're alluding to are a little far-fetched. Dr. Richards told the Senate inquiry during a hearing in Canberra last month. Now, that's an interesting point because I can't imagine the government will be that coordinated. I can't imagine. I know that people love to think of these intricate, complicated theories about what's going on. I'll just lean on Occam's razor, and I would hazard a guess that they'll bumble into all these things most of the time. I mean, come on, just try and get one department to talk to another department. How many numbers do you have for the government to identify you for different services? It's just ludicrous. So Dr. Richards noted the RBA Governor Philip Lowe had already indicated that negative interest rates in Australia are extremely unlikely. Yes, but I am certain a lot of people thought that they were extremely unlikely. And I'll just bring up the cash rate here, guys. Remember, if we hit 0.25, we're getting QE, which, I mean, I know the mechanism is different, but it has the same effect, doesn't it? It'll just erode the purchasing power of our money. Same thing as negative interest rates. The number isn't just going down, so it's not going to hit you as hard. It's not going to have the same psychological impact, but it should. It should. So this is despite the cash rate already sitting at a record low of 0.75%, and economists predicting more rate cuts earlier this year. There are almost no examples of negative interest rates for household deposits in those few countries that have had negative policy rates, Dr. Richards said. I would argue the fact that you're going to such an unnatural situation as having negative interest, shouldn't you fundamentally question the policies that you've done and the theories behind your economic management? I mean, the RBA is just all over the place. Well, no, they're not. They're consistently wrong with wage growth forecasts. Come on, guys, it's 2011. Ludicrous. A number of public papers and statements by the international body in charge of financial stability, the Washington-based International Monetary Fund, have also talked of the benefits of a world without cash. But Dr. Richards said the notion that cash may be about to be withdrawn from circulation also seems a little far-fetched. The Reserve Bank and the Governor have both said in different contexts recently that cash is a very important part of our payment system and our economy, he said. Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, look at the Australians having to, loot petrol stations during the bushfire because they didn't have cash. So Australians hold much wealth in cash. Dr. Richard said, RBA research found very large transactions by households are very infrequent, and when they occur, they use electronic payment methods or occasionally checks. Checks, I mean, yeah. That's retro. Despite fewer people using cash for major purchases, it was still the case that Australians were opting to store a considerable amount of wealth in physical banknotes. Dr. Richard said of about $80 billion worth of cash in circulation daily, around 25% of that is used for buying and selling, while the rest was being held by Australians. If you just take the numbers literally, it would be roughly $2,000 per household, but in actual fact, it is probably the case that most households have very little, and a few households have a lot. And maybe people overseas hold Australian dollars, Dr. Richard said. Asked by Labor Senator Alex Gallagher why the government would want to stop Australians from spending their money, which they've legitimately saved or decided to park under the bed and not in the bank, Dr. Richard responded, this was a recommendation of the Black Economy Taskforce. Dr. Richards also rejected assertions that the proposed cash ban could lead to banks gaining more control and increasing fees on customers. The big picture is that payments are already flowing to the banks. Yes, exactly. So why do we need another piece of legislation, another body to monitor stuff, another restrictions on our freedom? Why? If everyone's already moving to the banks. We do our monthly Aldi shop. I'll use Tap and Go. It costs me, a few percent, 1% or something in transaction fees. And I will happily cop that because I don't want to have to carry around $600 cash. Or $700, or whatever our monthly bill is. It's Rachel's department. But you understand. So, it's not about... That's a risk, but the biggest attack is that it's fundamentally an attack on our civil liberties, on one of our freedoms. He said service fees paid by Australian merchants are significantly lower than most other countries. So here, this is a very good point that's raised, that when I listened to, and I've done it in videos, you can see if you want to watch some live streams where we went through the footage from the hearing to the Senate, where the research comes, where the basis of all of this comes from, and it is just, it's a joke. It is really a joke, guys. If people realize how much research or how much evidence-based stuff out there is used to justify things, it's just anecdotal or rubbish, you'd be angry. So the task force had noted a $10,000 cash limit was one way to stop criminal gangs using large cash purchases of cars, houses, and jewelry to launder their gains from illegal activities. The head of Treasury's Black Economy Division, Peter Boneham, told last month's hearing that this view was formed by the task force based on anecdotal evidence. The best kind of evidence is anecdotal, isn't it? I think if you'd ask more people, they've been offered a lower price for cash, they'll potentially say yes, Mr. Boneham said. Well, I can tell you why. It means you're getting paid instantly. It means you don't need to wait 30 days. It means you don't need to wait for the transaction to come through. It means you don't need to risk cashing a check. The task force had made a qualitative estimate based on a wide definition of what activities make up the black economy. About $500 billion was lost to the black economy annually. Was it? Sorry, $50 billion. Was it lost to the economy, or is it still flowing in the economy? It's still part of the economy. It's still employing people. It's still buying things. Is it just that the government can't get their little hands on it? This estimate includes a wide array of activities, including underpaying wages or paying for work cash in hand, underreporting income, sham contracting, phoenixing, identity fraud, ABN and GST fraud, illicit tobacco, money laundering, unregulated gambling, criminal activities, counterfeiting goods, and illegal drugs. I mean, look how big that is. Business lobbies, including CPA Australia and the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, have previously said there is no legitimate evidence that the proposed law will stop black economy activity, and in fact it may actually result in more sophisticated cash activity. The proposed law does not currently capture digital currencies such as Bitcoin, although it does have the capacity to do that. Dr. Richard said this could result in a shift towards cryptocurrencies if an entity is currently transacting in cash for nefarious reasons and decides that it is no longer going to use cash. Yeah, but based on what? This is just complete speculation. They are taking away our right to spend a chunk of cash based on speculation and anecdotal evidence. Welcome to Australia, guys. Welcome to Australia. So, Austrac says bill will help fight money laundering. Bullshit. Bullshit. Austrac, yeah, come on. How about you just get on top of Westpac before you worry about any of this? Okay? Simple. Austrac told the inquiry it also supported the proposed law, saying a $10,000 cash payment limit would be a very useful measure that will help address a money laundering risk to the economy. That hasn't been identified. That's from anecdotal evidence and just... oh. It's about targeting the money laundering risks associated with cash, said Austrac's General Counsel Catherine Haig. While current law does state that if a bank customer deposits physical currency of $10,000 or more, the financial institution has to report it to Austrac, she said the authorities do not currently regulate transactions by high-value dealers. If someone is purchasing or selling a high-value good, such as jewelry, art, antiques, and luxury cars, that would not be something that would be required by using cash to report to Austrac. I mean, just think about this. Think about this, that our government is already tracking all of this data. How does that make you feel? The Uniting Church. Here's a good one. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you've got to watch the Uniting Church guy, because it does not feel like he is representing the church at all. It feels like he is representing the Black Economy Task Force. So the Uniting Church, Mark Sternzak, told the Senate hearing that his organization was supportive of the cash bill with a number of countries, and he didn't call them countries. What was it? Principality? No, not principalities. Too much Crusader Kings. I'll remember it later. A number of countries overseas already successfully implementing cash ban limits. Yes, and it's not being effective over there. So let's do all the stuff they've done overseas that doesn't work. I mean, we are anyway, aren't we? He said the proposed law change would deter real estate agents and high-value cash dealers from accepting dirty money from big purchases such as houses and jewelry. How do you know it's dirty money? He said former employees in the real estate area, the organization had spoken to, had allegedly some firms sent people to China in order to encourage clients in China to invest in property here in Australia, no questions asked. Sometimes they would suspect the source of the money was not legitimate. They would accept very large cash transactions from Chinese clients to purchase properties here in Australia. There is no requirement for a real estate agent to report any suspicious transactions. Of course not. We'll have a look here at our foreign investment. Do you think this would... Maybe the cash ban, we should just limit it on houses. Hey? The law is passed, he said the government should provide assistance to people with mental health issues and all the people who may have difficulty accessing the financial system. So the Law Council fears unintended consequences. And this is always the issue with any time you're having the government stepping in. But the Law Council of Australia's Andrew Ham told the Senate hearing the proposed law could result in unintended consequences. The law establishes a criminal offence of strict liability for anyone who gives or receives a cash payment that equals to or exceeds the cash payment limit of $10,000. In retail and wholesale business, they will be the people who are dealing with customers, Mr. Ham said. Many of those people are minimally paid, minimally trained, and minimally engaged with their workplace. They might be casual or part-time, and they might be 16 years old. Under this bill, all that has to happen is that someone wants to give them, the retailer, $10,000 to pay for something, and that person, the retail worker, is potentially heading to jail. And that disturbs me greatly. And I agree with that 100%. Also opposing the proposed law was the Australian Taxpayers Alliance Executive Director, Brian Marlow. Mr. Marlow, who is also Director of Legalise Vaping Australia, told the hearing he had heard from vape shops selling electronic cigarettes, adult shops, and people in the sex industry who were worried about the bill passing because they were relying on cash payments as some banks would not work with them. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. Here we go. If you pass this legislation through, ensure every bank have to provide banking for everyone, and it has to be completely free of fees. No, free of fees. There we go. If you're passing this legislation, where's the requirement for that? The feedback I've had from vape shop owners is that even smaller banks are now not working with them, Mr. Marlow said. In Victoria, I know that legal sex work operations found that they weren't able to trade with certain banks providers and things like that. he said, adding he did not have specific examples but would take it on notice and send that to the committee. The Senate inquiry into the proposed law is due to hand down its report by February 7, but there will be further public hearings before then. So I think Nazim did a very good job of summarizing some of the interesting points from the Senate hearing and the submissions that were made there and the people, the witnesses. What do you think, guys? Do you think the RBA, we're just all worried about nothing? Or do you think these unintended consequences could be the real issue? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you'd like to help us produce more content, I have a Patreon where you can make a small monthly donation. We also have the ability for you to join the YouTube channel where you can get access to emojis and badges. We also have affiliate links with Independent Reserve for your crypto trading, eBay and Amazon for your consumer purchases. These are great ways for you to support a channel because it doesn't cost you anything and we receive a small commission. We also have PayPal if you want to make a donation, and our very own merchandise, pocket squares, on the HeiseSays blog. Thank you everyone, have a great day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye for now.